Phil and Will are back with our part two of our Survivor season rankings. In part one, we went from 29 to 11. Today, we're going to go from 10 to 1. Just to recap what we did in part one, going from 29 to 11. Tied for last, we had One World in Redemption Island. 27, we had South Pacific. 26, San Juan del Sur. 25, Fiji. 24, Caramoan. 23, Thailand. 22, Nicaragua. 21, Borneo. 20, Panama. 19, Africa. 18 Marquesas, 17 Cook Islands, 16 All-Stars, 15 Blood versus Water, 14 Samoa, 13 Guatemala, 12 Australia, and 11 Palau. It was just the two of us doing the rankings, but any of those you think that we kind of underrate, maybe overrate a little, something that, should be in the top 10 and isn't?
Well, I only had Palau in the top 10. I had Palau at 7 and it ended up at 11, so that's kind of, not really a big difference there. I guess the ones we disagreed on the most were kind of the older, besides Blood vs. Water, but we talked about that, were the older seasons, Borneo and Australia. And I've been thinking about it a bit. It's kind of like, we have to talk about how we're kind of ranking these. I mean, we've got into, in the last podcast, why we think a season is good, why we think a season is bad. But do you take into account historical context when rating these seasons? I don't, and I think that's why I have Australia and Borneo much, much lower than you have Australia and Borneo. When I first watched them and their first airing, of course I loved them. They're great, but do you include your rewatch? Do you include, just give me, what do you include when you're doing these? We want to set this straight here.
Well, I include rewatches because some of mine jump up a lot on rewatches and some of them move down a lot on rewatches. The thing with Australia, though, is I've seen Australia 2 or 3 times, and I love it every time, and Australia is one of the ones I go back to. And with Australia, the way I look at it is you had so many classic characters, with Colby, Jerry, Tina. I mean, Colby, all 3 of them have played in like the 20s. So they've played within the last 10 seasons of Survivor, and here they were on season 2. And I know it's not the most exciting in terms of, huge moves all the time and constant, but I feel like they make up for it with cast, and that's why I like it so much, because you got to know everyone, and that's why Borneo is so high for me, is because that's still one of my top 5 casts of all time. And yeah, it's not the most exciting season, but to me it's one of the most entertaining, and I'm just looking to be entertained. And for me, blindsides and huge moves aren't the only thing that make for an entertaining Survivor season.
Right, I agree with you and disagree. I mean, Borneo and Australia, I will agree with you. They have great cast, and not just because they are the first and second seasons and they're, classic characters. They do have both really good cast. My thing with those 2 seasons is just if I'm ranking these 29 Survivor seasons just based on the episodes that they provide and taking the episodes at face value, not taking into account context. So, for example, if we take Borneo, same boot order, same series of events, same editing, you just get the same 14 episodes that was, and you move that to season 15, I feel like this season falls way lower than most other people have it. And I feel like these early seasons jump up in people's rankings just because of like the nostalgia and the historical context that they were in. Do you agree, or do you kind of see what I'm saying here?
No, I completely see what you're saying. The way I look at it is, if the show had started with a Thailand, I don't think people would love it. I don't think people would just jump it up in their rankings because it was the first season, because I really do think that Thailand was too unenjoyable of a cast. Whereas with Australia,
I don't know. I mean, Richard is so infamous for, like, I got the $1 million check written already. He ran the show. It was a Pagong post-merge. If you put Thailand in the first season, Brian Heidik becomes this Richard character, this sleazy car salesman who says, this is a business trip, and that's a straight up Pagonging, and I know I'll say the cast isn't as good, but you have the whole Ted and Gandia thing, and there's a lot of stuff going on in Thailand that we look at it now, and it's of course not one of our favorite seasons, and that's what I guess I'm getting at with Borneo and Australia. They were great at the time, classics at the time, but when we have so many versions of this show, and it's just evolved and developed, with idols. And I'm not saying idols are just like you have to have idols for a good season. I'm saying they do provide, some very great moments for the show. I just have those two seasons lower just because I enjoy what Survivor has become, and I just enjoy so many other seasons than, Borneo and
Well,
Australia.
I will say this, and I think I'm in the minority here, but I'm a huge fan of when they used to get into the whole camp life a lot more, and I really like that stuff. And I'm not so big on the challenges. I know that when you watch an episode now, 25 minutes of an episode is normally challenges. You got the rewards, you got the immunity, and they don't focus as much. And then you go to tribal council, they don't focus as much on the camp life. And I liked the camp life. I liked actually watching so much strategizing that maybe didn't pan out, but I just feel like it made for more memorable characters. So when I sit down and I say I'm only going to watch one season of Survivor, I would go to Borneo and Australia before I might go to something like one of the later seasons that we have kind of in the middle, like a Cook Islands, which I guess that's a middle of the road season. But I'm trying to see here, like a Samoa. I would rather go to an Australia or a Borneo than a Samoa, even though a Samoa had way more big moves. The cast was nowhere near as entertaining to me.
Yeah, I mean, those are just two very different seasons. If you're going to look at Borneo versus Samoa, just,
Yeah.
Probably the most evenly edited season versus maybe the most unevenly edited season. But I would take Samoa just because I am a fan of just I love that 4 taking down the Galoo 8 some. Just week after week, you thought one of these 4 people going to go home, and they just didn't. They didn't until the final 5. But I mean, I think we both have. I mean, we both have reasons for how we ranked them, and I think we've covered them pretty well. I'm just saying I look at each season with the episodes they provide, and then I rank them. I don't take into account kind of any context, which I'm not saying is you shouldn't take into context. I'm just saying that's how I do it.
I guess
You
my
can
big
rank these seasons how you want to rank them.
yeah.
I don't take into account this is the first season, or I remember seeing this on TV when I was 10 with Australia, like these characters are great. I just say episode to episode, how thoroughly was I entertained, and when I do that, Australia and Borneo just fall short compared to the other the seasons that I have above it. I'm looking at my rankings now, like Panama. That's just the middle of the tier season. I would rather watch Panama than Borneo or All Stars or Borneo or Australia, and that's probably because I just like that crazy Kasaya tribe so much. But I mean, we can,
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing is when I'm ranking them, I'm looking at which casts. I really like the cast where anybody could have won from day one. And yeah, sure, you might get your supervillain, but I want to get to know that supervillain. So like a season like Philippines, which has Abby Maria, I'd rather get to know Abby Maria and still think somehow this girl could go to the final and maybe win, instead of a season like they've been doing a lot in the 20s, where you sit down and you watch it and so many characters get lost by the wayside. To me, that's just kind of like waste of characters, because here you got, it's hard to get on this show. It's hard to pick this cast. And then all of a sudden you get out there and there's only 3 or 4 people you really get to know. I'd rather get to know all 16, all 18, all 20, whatever it ends up being. But I think really, like we always say, it's like our favorite show. So we're going to be nitpicking. That's really what we have to do. But I think we should get into the top 10 here. I think we should actually get into it. Just real quick, with Palau coming in at number 11, it was only 5 points out of 6th place, and it was only 2 points out of 10th. So the difference between 6 and 11 was not much. Palau not making the top 10, it was close. It was right there. Like, it really was right there. So,
yeah, I love Palau. So,
yeah. So I guess we'll just go right into it. Number 10 is Pearl Islands, and that's where we started, Pearl Islands.
Pearl Islands, yes. This might be low for a lot of people. A lot of people think Pearl Islands is the number 1 and maybe the number 2 season the show has ever done, and it's certainly a good season, but and it has great moments. I mean, I think the Johnny Ver play Dead Grandma is the single probably best moment in the show's history. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, no, that is still the defining moment of Survivor, because people who don't watch the show still sit down, and if you say the Dead Grandma thing, everyone knows that comes from Survivor. Like, that was one of the first big lies on TV. Like, that really anybody knew about. Like, everybody and anybody was talking about the dead grandmother thing. I remember Johnny Fairplay ended up being on like one of the wrestling shows not too long after that, and like he got like choke slammed or something because everybody hated him. But like, that's how much like you had wrestling people who were like talking about Survivor and stuff. Like, it was crazy like how huge that move really was for the show, and it still holds up as probably the defining moment, or like the biggest moment from the show.
Yeah, I can't think of any other moment that even really comes close to knocking that off the top spot as best moment in the show's 29 season run. Pearl Islands is I love the pirate theme. I think the cast is really great. We have a lot of really iconic characters coming out of this cast with Fair Play, as we mentioned. Rupert, of course, and Sandra, the only two-time winner, all coming from this cast. But the Outcast twist is probably what knocks the season down the most. I mean, and not saying I'm not saying if this season didn't have Outcast, it would be number one, but maybe it would be 5 or 6,
yeah,
6 or 7.
This one, you had asked me earlier in this if I take into account my rewatches, and this is one where I take into account the rewatch. And I remember when Pearl Islands first aired, and before I had rewatched any seasons, Pearl Islands was like a top 5 season for me. But then when I went back and rewatched it, when the Outcast twist happened, I felt like we lost so much of like, I don't want to say the integrity of the game because it really doesn't have anything to do with fixing or rigging. But for me, it was the vote out was the most iconic part of this show. That's what this show was for, was you live together, you vote somebody out if you lose the challenge, and they're done. And all of a sudden, those people who were voted out are coming back in, and we haven't seen them for episodes at a time, and they've been away from the game. And to me, it took away a lot of great characters to bring back some characters that, did we really need to see Lil come back and finish second place? Like, we didn't need to. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't have to happen.
Yeah, and what you're saying about rigging, I wouldn't say the twist is like completely rigged, but it is a little bit unfair that we don't even know really where they were, what they were eating. Jeff said they were on similar rations, but they were out of the game. They're not dealing with the stress and the mental aspect of worrying about being voted out. Like they have nothing to lose. They're just hanging out, waiting to just come back into the game. So that's a bit unfair. And then if you watch that challenge when it was the 2 tribes plus the Outcast tribe, if the Outcasts won, they would get to vote 2 people in. If they came in second place, they would vote 1 person back in. And if they came in last, they would get to vote nobody in. The challenge was completely rigged for them because the Outcast, they didn't have buffs. So to distinguish them from the other tribe, they were covered in purple fabric, and you can go watch this challenge. I think it's episode 7 of Pearl Islands. Go ahead and watch this challenge. Them having that purple fabric won them the challenge because they used it to tie sticks together to stick out of one of those gates, get the key. One of those. That's a very common Survivor challenge. And that completely, like they were tying really sturdy knots with these pieces of fabric when the other 2 tribes had to use little pieces of string and twine, and it's just why are we getting 2 players who have been voted out, and it screws over Andrew Savage, who was a great player, really enjoyable to watch. It just doesn't do anything for this season. It just really takes away like you said, we have Lil in the final 2.
Yeah. And that's what kills it is, like we always say, you don't have to have a great winner to be a great season. You don't have to have, there's a lot of things that go into being a great season, but when you look at the final 2 here, Sandra versus Lil was a pretty disappointing final 2, because even if it was Sandra versus Fair Play, that would have been a pretty cool, that would have been a cool final 2, because at least they were both good characters, and they'd been in the whole.
Oh, yeah. That would have been great to see.
You had Burton and Lil both come back into the game, and Burton got, 5th place? Burton got 5th, right?
I believe so.
He gets 5th place when really he was the first one voted off of Rupert's tribe. He comes back into the game. He ends up beating Rupert. He ends up beating Krista, who were both on his tribe and voted him out originally. And it wasn't like with Redemption Island where everybody knew about it. This was something that nobody on the cast knew was going to happen. So it was such a huge blindside that it just seemed too out there and too ridiculous. And that's really what knocks this season down so far for me, is just the Outcast thing. It was too much. They shouldn't have done it. And Survivor regrets it. They do. You
Yeah,
know,
Jeff has said that was one of their biggest blunders, that and the medallion of power.
yeah.
Although I mean, he hates on the medallion power. A lot of people do.
It
I didn't
didn't
really have
hurt.
that big of
It
a
didn't
problem
change
with
the
it.
game that much like this.
Yeah, it
This
didn't add anything really, so it's hard to
this
really hate
turned
that.
everything.
Yeah, it did. This was unfair. This was like you score a touchdown, you're in the end zone, the ref puts his hands up, and then he says, "Oh, touchdowns are only 3 points now." Like
Yeah.
it's just like changing the rules of the game without anybody really knowing it. But we can talk about the outcast twist all I want. This season was a good season. It was a great season. We have it in our top 10. Um, I love Sandra as a winner. She was the anybody but me strategy. I think she was one of the first, I think, to just really hone in on that strategy and ride
Well,
that to a victory.
to do it successfully, yeah. I mean, she really didn't have to make too many big moves this entire game, and she got to the end and she won. And she was the person who quietly did it all. She wasn't the huge larger than life character, and some people think that in that first season, she wasn't actually that good of a winner. But then when she comes back and wins Heroes versus Villains too, it's kind of like, well, she knows what she's doing. She
Yeah,
definitely knows what she's doing. And Pearl Island Sandra is an awesome character. On rewatches, she's something that really moves up in my ranking in terms of gameplay.
yeah, I like Pearl Island's Sandra much more than Heroes vs. Villains Sandra. Some other moments we can. I love Sandra blaming the fish dumping on Krista. It's when Rupert was voted out, and there's a bunch of fish Rupert caught, and Sandra knocks it over by accident, and all the fish goes bad because it's on the ground, and everyone like fair play Burton blame Krista for it, and Krista they just let her have it. Krista just gets totally bombarded with accusations. She denies it. Sandra never confesses to it, even though Krista's one of her allies. That just showed how Sandra was in it to win it the whole time, even if that wasn't apparent by these big moves. She was playing for the million. And then Rupert, I don't know much we need to say about Rupert. He's one of the most iconic people to play. You got anything on Rupert?
No, that's really. I mean, Rupert's played the game what 4 times now, and he's probably really the face of. I mean, maybe Boston Rob, but when people think of Survivor, people think of Rupert. At least the people from early seasons, he's really the one who transcended all the way through. He played in season 7, and then he plays in season 27. So people remembered him the whole way through, and he's really. I think he's like the face of the show. So there's really not much you can say too about him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, though, I do want to say about this season, because it's really changed. It changed a lot of stuff down the road. Austin Taylor being the first quitter of all time.
Yes, it's funny that it took 7 seasons for someone to quit Survivor because nowadays it seems like someone's quitting every season or every other
Yeah.
season we're getting a quitter. So yeah, he had it out there, and it was interesting how Jeff handled it because he didn't really know what to do. It was the first time someone quit, and he was pretty pissed.
Yeah, which he should be. I mean, it was at that time this show was at its biggest. From season 1 through All Stars, it was the biggest show, and you got 16 people coming out on an island, and this was the first season with 18. But you get 18 people coming out on this island, and to have somebody just quit like out of like nowhere, really not even on one of the more difficult to live on seasons. It wasn't even like it was a very hard season. There's been way harder seasons. And Austin he's like, I've been sick before. I don't want to be here. He leaves and really opened the door for people to think it's okay if I go out there and quit.
Yeah, I mean we had an influx of. I mean then yeah, Jenna quit in All Stars. Sue quit in All Stars. Trying to
Yeah.
think. I don't have a list
Janu
of
quit
quitters in front of me.
in Palau, right? Didn't Janu quit?
Yeah, Janu quit, and
So I mean that's 4 quits in 4 seasons. And really, I mean, the one that's understandable is Jenna Maraska's because her mom did die. But everything else, it's kind of like it just made it seem like it was okay to do, and that all started in Pearl Islands. Yeah.
that's right. Anything else on Pearl Islands? We've been talking about it for a while now.
No, I think we're good. I think we should move on to number 9.
Okay, number 9, Vanuatu, and that's interesting because Vanuatu is the 9th season of the show.
No, didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and this
This
is actually tied with Pearl Islands in points. So these were very close. We had them about even.
Yeah, and the thing with Vanuatu is I had it at number five. This is the first episode, or this is the first season to show up from my top five, and I know I could not believe how much like that I was putting it above some of the seasons I was putting it above. Like I had it, I don't know if this is spoiling stuff, but I think I had it above Micronesia. Which I was shocked that I put it above Micronesia. But when I think about this season, the reason I love it so much with any good TV show, you just need to come back for something. And a lot of seasons, you just come back to see who gets voted off. This season, you came back to see if the guys could ever figure out how to take over the women and to watch Chris. Could Chris possibly pull this out? And I feel like that's one of the greatest storylines Survivor's ever had. And because of that, if it's the greatest storyline, I feel like it deserves its spot at number five. Because I don't think that, even the ones that I have above it, I don't think they had better storylines than Chris's storyline from this show.
I agree that it is like one of the best arcs storylines this season should have, but like I disagree with your use of it in how you rank a season. And I mean I can get into it. I mean Chris, how he was on the balance beam in the very first challenge, he just couldn't get across it, and he single-handedly loses that first immunity challenge for the guys. And this is, we're 9 seasons into Survivor, and we know what's going to happen. Like Chris is going to go home. It's pretty obvious. But then you start to see like a little flicker of hope. He has like a confessional saying, survivors outwit, outplay, outlast, not outbalance. He totally owned it that it was his fault. And, we thought, is he going to get by the first tribal? Then he, gets by that, and then he, goes deep into the game. And the arc is great in the way he was with a bunch of women at the end, and he pulled the win out somehow and just bullshitted his way. Love everything about Chris. But just because the story arc is great doesn't mean that every episode in between was great and that it was, moving throughout. And I do like the season a lot. Vanuatu is a great season. I have it at 14, and I mean we've said this all the time. It's hard to rank, 20 things you really, really love. So 14 isn't bad. I do really enjoy this season, and I think Chris had the best tribal council performance ever. But when I'm watching, just if you pick like episode 8 or 9, or just like a pre-merge episode that episode 4, just I don't think it doesn't just carry its entertainment weight as much as other seasons do.
Here's my thing with
Chris is one of my favorite winners for sure.
Well, here's my thing with Vanuatu. Pre-merge, I loved because you had the old guys take over that that tribe. When all the young guys saw they were going to be good, so right off the bat, you got a blindside when that guy Brooke went home first. Then at the women's camp, they did the same thing where you think that somebody's on top, and you got to remember this is the season that gave us Eliza Orlins, who her and Chris might be the two best scrappy players ever. All they could do was scramble. And Eliza Orlins, everybody wanted gone from the start every single time. All those women could not stand her. And then they started taking out threats instead. And I think that made such a great dynamic for the pre-merge because you kept sitting there saying, okay, when are one of these guys going to go? And it just made for a very entertaining pre-merge. I could see where you're saying post-merge, not the most entertaining thing. But after the guys went, after it was Rory, even Rory, I mean, you didn't want to see him go. He's an entertaining character. Sarge went, and then Chad went. So you had 3 episodes that might have been a lull, but for me, everything before it and everything after it were so good that it doesn't matter, and everything else was so good it's not as hurt by that little lull.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear what you're saying, and again, I just think there are 13 better seasons than Vanuatu, and Chris, I'll just say, I think you can disagree or agree. Do you think Chris had the best final tribal council performance? I mean, it's up there for
Easily.
sure. I think it's the best.
And the thing with his tribal council performance is they're sitting there and they're talking about everything, and then everybody thought he was so sincere and so real, and then they get to the reunion and everybody was just ripping him apart for being the fakest person alive because he was just lying his ass off, but it seemed so sincere.
And even Scout was like, Chris, you are up to your ears in bullshit.
Yeah.
And Chris kind of nodded like, yeah, but then they still all vote for him pretty much, except Amy voted for Twyla. She saw through it. Who else how many votes did Twyla get?
I think it was Amy, and it was 5-2. I think it was Amy and Leanne because the guys all voted for Chris, and Eliza voted for Chris. Julie voted for Chris because Chris brought Julie's hat back, which is one of the
Yeah.
funniest things ever. Um, but I mean, Amy Cusick, that's another great character from this show. She was a great villain. She was like the second coming of Jerry. She just got kicked off too early in Micronesia because she was a
Yeah,
great villain.
I like Amy a lot. She knew what she was doing. I definitely enjoyed her on Vanuatu. But here, Vanuatu's at number 9. I had it at 14, so it's only 5 spots away. And then, like we said, we are nitpicking. But I'm happy with where this lands. It is a great season. You got anything else on Vanuatu?
No, that's good. We'll move on to number 8, which is the Philippines, season 25.
The saving grace of the 20s. I mean,
Yeah,
this was after we had, you know, Redemption Island at 22, South Pacific at 23, One World at 24, and each of those seasons, I mean, the first 2 had returning players, and then One World was just like the dumbest of dead dumb cast ever. And then for season 25, they're bringing back 3 people who have been medevaced. And when they announced the medevac returnees, I was not excited. I'll be honest, I was not excited. What did you think of these
this
returning players?
this was when
Not,
I was
not
getting
after seeing it. Just like, what did you think when they announced it? Were you like excited for this season?
no when they announced it, I was not. The only one I liked was Penner. I thought it was cool to bring back Scoopin, but he was kind of out of it for too long. Russell Swan, you know how I feel about Samoa. I don't feel like Russell Swan. I don't feel like there was a use to bring him back. I like Penner, but I thought that it was going to be a bad season because now you're only getting 5 new guys, right? 5 or 6 new guys, and then 9 new women. But I thought that the returnees were going to overtake everything again.
Yeah, I was not excited. I was happy about Scoopin. I was like, that's pretty cool. He fell into the fire. He's like this really famous guy on Survivor who fell in the fire. He killed a pig. Like, he deserves a second chance if anyone does. And then you have Penner, who is like, is he really a medevac guy? I know he was a medevac for Micronesia, but he did get voted out in Cook Islands. It's not like he never got voted out or anything. He didn't have a chance to finish his game. Like, his torches had been snuffed. So I wasn't that excited to see Penner, as though I do like him as a character. And then Russell Swan, I was like, that's just a waste of a returnee. You could tell from his season that he was kind of had delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
Thought has a big ego, thinks he's the macho man. Thinks very highly of himself, and wasn't a very savvy player.
Well,
We
that
didn't
was
get to see him that much because of his tribe's domination.
yeah.
But I was just not happy with what was going to happen this season. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and with this season, with Russell Swan coming back, I remember during Samoa they would call it good Russell versus bad Russell. And then as the season went on, it became bad Russell versus less bad Russell. Because Russell Swan really did not know what he was doing, and he became, the more you got to know him, the more of an ass he became. That's the way I feel. But this season delivered, and this season really did save the show because those 3 seasons before it are our bottom 3 seasons, normally considered 3 of the worst seasons of the show, and Nicaragua is not normally considered much better. So this was the saving grace and gave us what I think one of our best heroes with Malcolm and one of our best winners of all time with Denise.
Yeah, I agree completely. And this when was the last time they did a 3-tribe format? I know we did 4 in Cook Islands, we did 4 in Panama, but was this might have been the first 3-tribe start since All Stars.
I think it was. Because normally they would always start with either 2 or 4.
I think this was just the second 3-tribe start. In 3-tribe start, I mean, this propelled 3-tribe starts to be kind of a
well, the thing that made this work so well is even though one tribe was kind of useless, the one with Malcolm and Denise that just fell apart, they had very entertaining characters that you really didn't want to see go. Zane's one of the best first boot-offs. Watching Russell Swan just fall apart was entertaining. And then Angie with the cookie, she was a very entertaining character. On a different tribe, she probably goes further. But the thing is, even though one tribe got completely decimated, you got to know that tribe so well that then when they had to merge in with the other 2 tribes, you didn't think that they were going to get picked off. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't allow for alliances of just one tribe picking off another tribe, which is what happened in those 3 seasons before that. It was just pagonging after pagonging.
Yeah, and Malcolm and Denise were just very savvy and smart, and they both realized that they were the smartest, best competitors on their team. They instantly kind of knew Russell Swan wasn't like this pro returnee that knew what he was doing. They were like, we're the power players here. So they just kind of sat. They were smart. They kind of sat in the back, let Russell think he's in control, and then when it was Russell, Denise, and Malcolm, I think Russell was pretty shocked that he was the one sent home, even though to the audience it was just so clear that Malcolm and Denise were the
Yeah.
savvy players and had a really strong bond.
Well, that just showed how bad Russell was. But then the other thing that's great about this season, we weren't excited. I wasn't too excited about the returning players. You weren't too excited about the returning players. But what makes it work so great is they weren't that recognizable of people. So they
Right.
weren't looked at as like these larger than life characters like an Ozzy, like a Coach, like a Boston Rob, like a Russell. They were very down to earth players, and I feel like they connected more with the other players and also didn't hog all the screen time.
Right. They weren't overbearing. They didn't just take up the whole season like the other returnees did. And that was what we came to realize, that maybe when we have returnees, they don't need to be like the superstars. They can just be kind of normal players. And that's like you said, the season works so well. I love the intro. I love Jeff Kent, first of all. I'm a huge Giants fan, and he won MVP one year. He's a big time baseball player, and he was a pretty strong player. And that tribal council where he went home is probably the best tribal council since Heroes versus Villains. Maybe.
And you know what? It still might go, like, other than maybe wanting Cagayan and maybe the Jeremy vote off and San Juan del Sur, it's probably, it's top 3 since Heroes versus Villains, and really, other than maybe 1 or 2 in Heroes versus Villains, it could even compete with most of those, because that was just a random tribal council, but it was so entertaining, and Jeff Kent did nothing wrong to go home that night.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those times you go into tribal and you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, most of the time, it's either A or B is going home. That's kind of what Survivor has gotten into this groove of setting up. It's one alliance versus the other, but there's these people who might flip. There might be an idol played. Dun dun dun. This was just chaos. Like this, no one knew what was going to happen. And then Jeff Kent has his words after getting voted out. Probably some of the best post getting voted out words in the whole. It's only like $600,000. Obama takes it all. Love that. Let's see. I mean, this season was great from start to finish. The whole Abby Maria RC thing, where Pete leaves the idol clue out, pins them against each other. That was just great TV, great to watch. Abby's one of those characters you just love to hate, or at least I just love to hate. I couldn't really stand her. She had the worst attitude, but she just kind of stayed in the game because everyone knew they could beat her.
Yeah, and I couldn't stand Abby Maria, but at the same time, she brought, you know what it was? This season had a great balance of heroes and villains. And there's so many seasons where you'll have too many heroes or you'll have too many villains. Like with San Juan del Sur, there was nobody to root for. And then sometimes there's too many people to root for and there's not enough ruthlessness. This season, it had the perfect balance for you. Had Abby Maria and Pete. Pete is a very underrated player. He was a bitter guy who was always thinking one step ahead, and he was very underrated. He took out RC, who I think the editors wanted us to love, but I couldn't stand her. And then you had Penner doing his thing, which he's always, you don't know if he's a hero or a villain. It just had a really good balance of everything. Lisa Welchel, I didn't like her too much, but if she would have won the game, I would not have been surprised. Because she did play and people did like her out there.
Yeah, she was another good character. You really got to know her too. She's not, the returnee hogging up the screen. As a new player that we didn't know anything about, who we learned, a good amount. Another just one of my favorite moments, maybe post Heroes vs. Villains, is when Russell Swan is looking for the idol and the clue is like it's right under your nose. And he's like calling out what's happening. He's like, I bet the idol's on the screen with me right now. I bet it's flashing and I can't find it. And then as he's saying this, that's exactly what's happening. It's on the top of the rice. It's the rice lid, and it's lighting up. And he's looking all around. And I thought that was just hilarious.
Yeah, the editing was really good on this season. And it was moments like that, and then it was also moments of by the time it got down to the final five, you really didn't know who was going to win. It was still wide open.
I don't know. It was wide open. I would say we were pretty confident either Malcolm or Denise was going to take this one home, especially when you got because you realized Scoopin was an idiot pretty quick.
Yeah.
He kept getting injured, like just left and right, doing something idiotic, and it really kind of gave us some insight as to why he fell in the fire. It wasn't just some bad luck. Like the guy is a klutz, and I think that was such a funny reveal when it kind of hit me and kind of hit the viewers. They definitely edited it this way. It's like, man, this is why he fell in the fire. Like he gets hurt all the time.
Yeah. It's true, and it's funny with him because when he was on Australia, he was like this big, strong guy who like everybody was looking at as he is the leader of that Kucha tribe, like he is the man. And then he comes out in this season, and you're sitting there, and you're like, what was it? The first episode, he hurt himself like twice or three times. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, he hurt himself the whole season. It was so cool to see like the season 2 guy who fell in the fire. 15 years, not 15, maybe 12 years later, is now like we realize why it happened. I thought that was pretty cool. Overall, I don't really have anything bad to say about the season. The final 3 could have been better, but I think we knew Denise was winning. At least I had a pretty good feeling she was winning going into Final Tribal Council. Do you have anything else on Philippines?
No, because Denise, like the whole thing with Denise, knowing Denise was going to win didn't take away from it though, because Denise completely deserved it, and she had played with really good players this whole season, so it didn't take away from the fact that you knew she was going to win. To me, she's probably a top 3 or 4 winner that the show's ever had.
Yeah, she went to every tribal council too, which was very, very impressive.
Yeah,
and I don't even think did she receive any votes?
I don't think so. Maybe when she was first with whatever, I forget what the Yellow tribe's name was, but maybe when she was first with them, not Yellow, she was with Red, with Jeff Kent, Penner, and all them. Maybe when she was first with them, but I'm not sure if she actually did. I don't know if Dawson voted for her or not.
Okay. Well, either way, great winner, great season. Yeah. On to number 7, Tocantins. Tocantins.
The Brazilian Highlands.
The Brazilian Highlands. Good call.
To me, this is one of the more likable. Well, it depends on where you stand, but for me, this is one of the more likable casts, and that's why I had it ranked at number 7, which is where it comes in. I really loved everyone on this cast, and I loved the dynamic of this entire cast.
Yeah, this cast was good, up and down, and think this was the first season where we had one person from each tribe going to exile, and that was a good twist, and it was well done, and it actually panned out pretty well.
Yeah, because one of my favorite episodes of the show that really never panned out was the merge episode of this season, where Joe Dowdle got hurt. He got his knee infected, so he had to get taken out. But while they're waiting to see if Joe's going to come back in, because they all thought he was, there were so many alliances going on, and everybody thought they were in control, and that's when you had the Dragon and the Wizard and the Dragon Slayer and the Bride of the Dragon, and Tyson just wanted to be assistant coach. That's all he kept saying. And you had so many alliances going on, but because you had 2 tribes and you had the possibility of the Exile Alliance, that was one of the most entertaining episodes, and then it all panned out next when Brendan goes home at Final 9. But it was a shame you didn't get to see somebody get voted out at that merge episode, because that was awesome, and I don't think Joe would have gone at 10 if he was healthy.
Yeah, no, Brendan was going to go that episode if it weren't for Joe getting medevaced. But, we can just go through these characters. We have JT, Steven, Taj. They make the merge. They lose Joe. It's 3, and then they get down all the way to Final 4. That was crazy. It was crazy how they went in with no power. This 8 versus 3, or was it 6 versus 3? I think it was
6 versus 3.
So 6 versus 3, and even though they only had 3 people, it was everyone wanted to work with them. It's like people just wanted to be with JT and Steven. It was crazy. We really hadn't seen anything like this before. And people, even when they were in the game, like Brendan was saying, JT is such a good dude. If he wins, I'm satisfied. Taj was saying similar stuff, like JT is just great. Even Coach is like, JT is a warrior. I'd love to see him win. And these people are saying this while they're all still in the game, in the running for $1 million. Yet they're still saying like JT winning would be so great. Like that was, we had never seen anything like that before.
The funny thing about this season is, and I guess this was kind of like a sign of things to come because the same thing happened in Samoa. It's almost like the anti-Pagonging, where the lower numbers just took over and wiped out the huge tribe. And Timbira comes in with 6 people, but they were so dysfunctional, and they all wanted power so bad. I mean, Tyson and Brendan were so dumb fighting with each other the whole time. And then you had Sierra, who was just kind of obnoxious to everyone. And then you had Coach, who was so into himself, he couldn't even figure out what was going on. And then you had Aaron, who was just sitting there laying low and decided to jump ship at the right time. I mean, that post-merge, even though Timbira gets wiped off one by one, was so entertaining. It was incredibly entertaining.
The difference between Tocantins and Samoa, I'll say Samoa is that each vote you didn't really know if the 4 was going to pull it off with have numbers. The thing with Tocantins is just they had power just right when they arrived. It was like people gravitated towards them, and they like within the next episode after Brendan went home, the next episode JT and Steven were they were sitting pretty. They were chilling. In Samoa, the 4 each kind of episode had a scramble and pull someone over, make something happen. Fincher with the Rock, not wanting to do that. Getting Shambo on their side. But this was just like they just immediately just had power just by being likable, and I don't know what it was. The 6 Timbira, they just really they hated each other. They didn't want to like stay 6 strong. No one really that was in no one's agenda to do that.
And the other thing with this season is, too, you can say what you want about Coach because you saw him so many times. You saw him in Season 20. You saw him in Season 18. You see him in Season 23. The thing with Coach is in this season, he was gold for TV. And you might say he was over-edited and stuff, but I thought he was just absolute gold, and I was thoroughly entertained by every single thing Coach did. And I was rooting for Coach to get further because I wanted to see what dumbass thing he was going to do next.
Coach here, he's like, I want to change the game, play with honor, and he was just. They edited it this way too. I mean, there was one pre-merge episode where Coach's tribe, Timbira, loses immunity, and they're all gathered around the shelter, and Coach is like, the worst thing we can do is go off into little groups and start talking and pointing fingers at one another. And then they cut, and it's Coach and Tyson by like the beach, and Coach is like, I forget who it was, but like so-and-so just dropped the ball at today's challenge. Like she just couldn't handle it. I think it was Aaron. She's got it. Aaron, maybe it was Aaron. Like he just starts talking shit about his tribe when he just told his tribe not to do that. But he thinks it's okay because he's like this honorable leader or whatever. I mean, it was so insane that, and he actually believed that he was like this great guy, good. And then, I think when JT and Steven were on Reward, this is post-merge, Coach and Debbie go up to Sierra and say, like, do you want to get Timbira back together? And Sierra tells JT and Steven, and then when JT and Steven ask Coach about it, Coach just blatantly lies, and he claims to have never lied in the game, and it was just so blatant that he was lying. Even Sierra in the reunion show, like, I called him out, like, he's a liar, like, you saw him lie. And he's never really confessed to that, even in the reunion show.
Well, and he's one of those people, he was so hypocritical and delusional. I mean, we'll get into him more, I think, when we get to Heroes versus Villains, but he was a nutcase. And he thought that he was being honorable, playing with integrity, doing all this stuff, and he was lying the most out of anyone. Just to get himself further in the game. He was insane. He was absolutely nuts, but he was so entertaining. There was nothing wrong with him.
Right. I like Coach, Tocantins Coach. Also, Tocantins Tyson, one of my favorites. Just his his dry sarcasm. I mean, he was a fun guy to watch. I would have loved to see him make it further in the game. He won the first 2 individual immunities, and then he, they blindside him. But it was okay though, because you like Taj, you like JT. There was enough good characters that when a good character went home, you weren't like. You weren't like San Juan del Sur. It's like Jeremy and Josh go home. You just kind of go, like who's gonna win this thing now? Yeah. And it kind of has to be Natalie. This was like you had good people. The cast was just great.
Yeah, this This cast was unbelievable, and Tyson, best Tyson moment, probably what I think brought him back for Heroes versus Villains, is when he's sitting there at the tribal council, just going around saying he likes Brendan, he likes Jeff, he likes Coach, he likes Debbie,
Loves.
and he says everyone but Sierra, everyone
Yeah.
but Sierra.
He said loves, and then yeah, he says I love Brendan and winks at him,
Yeah,
getting
and
that jury out.
And a little
Um,
side thing on this season that I heard in like a Tyson, I think it was actually on RHAP with Rob has a podcast where Tyson had said that him and Brendan, when they got voted off, they came into tribal council as members of the jury holding like hot dogs and food and just started eating it in front of them because they snuck it in there. And Jeff was asking everybody questions, and they were all just staring at Tyson and Brendan. And finally, Jeff, he said that production got so mad at them, was just flipping out on them, and like they were like, well, what are you going to do to us? Like there was nothing they could do, but the production team just got so angry about that, and I think that just shows like how fun this cast was, where they were just doing stuff, not to be mean spirited, but just to have a good time and kind of egg each other on, because I think they all really do like each other.
yeah, this is a fun cast. I didn't know that story. That's really funny. I can totally see both of them doing that. You have anything else on Tocantins?
No, I think I'm good on token jeans.
Okay, on to number 6, Gabon.
Yeah, and this is other than Vanuatu for our top 10. This is the one where we disagreed the most.
I have Gabon at 4, and you have it at 12.
Yep. And once again, not to say it's a bad season. I mean, putting it at 12, it's right on the cusp of top 10, and really I'm nitpicking at that point. But to me, Gabon coming in at 6. I mean, why don't you talk about Gabon first? And since you have so many, since it's in your top 5, you should talk about it first.
Okay. I believe Gabon has the best cast in Survivor history.
Okay.
I
I
said
think it's 3 or 4 top 5 cast, but I wouldn't put it as the best.
I'm going with the best. I'm just gonna rattle off the characters. Kenny, you gotta love Kenny, and we can go into what they did and what happened. Kenny, Maddie, Sugar, Randy, Corinne, Ace. You have Marcus and Charlie. Um, Crystal, the gold medalist who sucks at challenges.
Don't forget
I'm
Bob,
probably
man.
even for you have Bob. You have
Yeah.
Bob, the winner. I mean, what? How much? I mean, this cast just it was. I love this cast.
And you know what it is? For me, this one doesn't drop spots for the cast. It drops spots for the randomness, which it helped to make it more entertaining as it went through. But I feel like the 2 tribe switch-ups before the merge hurt it in my eyes. And that's why I have it lower down. This is a season where it's incredibly entertaining, and like you said, the cast is phenomenal. But for me, it was just there was too much randomness that once somebody actually gained control with Marcus, Charlie, Corinne, Randy, when they gained control, they lost it because of all of a sudden here's another tribe swap.
I hear what you're saying about the double tribe swap, and it definitely is. When they did that second tribe swap, how many tribal councils did they have? I think just one, right? And then they merged.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so here's where I'm going to defend this tribe swap. You have, after the second tribe swap, you have Marcus, Bob, Susie, Crystal, and Kenny on a tribe. Right?
yeah.
I think that's right. Okay. So you would think Bob, Marcus, Susie, they were on an original tribe together against Crystal and Kenny. And Marcus goes home at this tribal council when this 5 goes to vote, and it's his fault. And you can't blame the tribe swap. Susie said, like, to Marcus, and in her confessional, she said, if Marcus promises me final 3, then I will, vote Kenny out or vote Crystal out. But Marcus just never gained Susie's trust. And that's a mistake as a player. And however smart he was, high IQ off the charts, he's a doctor. He was in total control with, Charlie, Corinne, and Jackie before their tribes got switched up. But if you can't adapt and if you can't lie and say, Susie, yeah, me and you and Bob, we're final three. If you can't do that, he got voted off. And I don't feel sorry for Marcus. It's not like Aaron in China where like the tribe switch, PG and Jamie throw the challenge, and Aaron's gone, like nothing he can really do about it. This is where Marcus made a game mistake. So, and that was the only tribal council after that second tribe swap. So I can't knock the season for that tribe swap.
Well, and you know what though? To me, it was just too much. But I understand where you're coming from. My thing is, it actually probably worked out better for the show that Marcus went home there because Kenny and Crystal were much more entertaining, I think, than Marcus. And I think had Marcus stayed in, you would have seen kind of a pagonging.
Yeah, I mean, we never these hypotheticals. We never know what would have happened, with one twist or another.
But
Kenny, I think, has.
But you do know Kenny is more entertaining than Marcus.
Right, and Kenny has my favorite arc this season. Kenny starts out, he says he hasn't kissed a girl in 5 years, and then, he befriends the hottest chick on the island. They, share a termite together, and then she gets voted off. And then when they're drafting tribes, he's like, I'll pick Kelly because Kelly's really hot, and then she gets voted off, and you kind of feel for him. And then he gets in this like mastermind, lie mode where he lies to Sugar, saying, Ace wants you out. Boom, Ace goes home. He then tells his alliance that Charlie is running the opposition alliance just because Charlie stole the idol clue. Boom, Charlie's gone. Kenny was wheeling and dealing. He really became a strategist. Then he got to be so good and so powerful, he got overconfident. And that's where, and he even said that in reunion, he became overconfident and cocky, and that was his downfall. But Kenny's arc was just great. So much fun to watch.
Kenny should have played this game again by now.
Yeah, I hope he does. I really hope he does. He did an AMA on Reddit, and I think he said, he would play if he was asked. So hopefully we see that. But we have Sugar and the Sugar Shack. When the idols were actually hard to find. We have Bob's fake idols. We have the idol at the fake merge feast, and Marcus convinces them to throw it into the ocean. Every episode just had something really great. And then you have Corinne and Randy, who are really always just really funny, just hating everything and everyone. And then they love each other because they both hate everything. Like when Randy sees Corinne's hatred for Susie, Randy just smiles and just loves it. This season had villains, it had heroes, it had underdogs, it had a great winner. Bob just like the best strategic mind, but he's like a perfect winner for this type of season.
I think Bob gets a bad rap because he didn't play a conventional game that winners play. And Bob played a great game because he managed everyone perfectly. And he got all of those votes from, who was it? It was Sugar. The only reason he made it to the final three is because he made the fake idol for Randy. And yeah, sure, it looks like he's spitting on Randy, but had he not done that, Sugar doesn't take Bob to the final three with her. She takes Maddie instead. Maddie's your champion of Survivor.
Yeah, it wasn't like a spite Randy, like I hate Randy. Even when they were laughing, Bob was really upset that they laughed so hard. He's like, you didn't have to laugh. That was Bob realizing he was, his alliance was going down. I need to kind of get in good with Sugar and Kenny and Crystal, and he did that very well.
Yeah, and
he's not like the best winner, but he's just his fake idol was just amazing. That fake idol.
And the thing with him is, like, he's 57 years old when this season airs. He's out there. He's ranked as the third most important member on his tribe when they first did that. And then he still gets picked last because everybody's underestimating him. He was like the Boy Scout who was 50 years too old to be a Boy Scout. And here he is walking around just picking up things. What do you say? He was just using it off of tree mail. He would use it off of, like, when you'd walk into camp. And all of a sudden he makes, like, these idols and stuff, and it was unbelievable. It saved him a couple times.
Yeah, it was. I have nothing bad to say about Gabon. I love Gabon. Maybe I'll just move it to number one.
But I hear where you're coming
because
from.
Then we'll get talking about the ones ahead of it, and I'll say, oh man, I love this season too. We're talking about Survivor here. I do love so many of the seasons. So, but I will stand by that. I think Gabon has the best cast.
And what I think is great about Gabon is you had Charlie, who's one of the nicest guys of all time to ever play this game. He's aligned with the meanest people ever. With Corinne, Randy, Marcus, just bitter. They got bitter too as it went on. I mean, you could even see when they were making their jury speeches, they were just bitter. And Charlie gets aligned with them, and he gets screwed over because he's aligned with them just by being the nicest one out of all of them that nobody wants to keep going with.
Yeah, I mean, he went home single-handedly because he saw Kenny get that idol clue, and just Kenny wanted revenge, and Kenny was just like, I'm the powerhouse mastermind here. I'm going to take out who I want to take out. So he got kind of a raw deal. But he was a good character too. I mean, this season was full of. I mean, even Ace, when he went out early, but he was an interesting guy to watch. I love the location. I mean, they saw the elephants. There were gorillas. I mean, the season had it all.
And like I'm a huge Maddie fan. So like I like giving Maddie his due because I feel like he's a very underrated character from just this show in general. I love Maddie. But there's one character who is always forgotten about, GC. He was nuts. He was crazy. When they could not find him like 10 minutes before an immunity challenge, and I don't even think production knew where he was. He was just in a boat going down the creek.
Yeah, Jeff said in the reunion, like we've never actually we were about to be like, all right, we got to go. Like they just can't find him.
Yeah.
He was like nominated leader, and then he takes it, and then he quits. And it was funny. Anyone who like Kenny got kind of close to would just get voted off, and then he by the end was like the mastermind. And I just love Kenny's arc. I love Kenny as a character this season. I don't really have anything else to say on Gabon. I mean, you can
just one other thing I want to say about Gabon is something that I wish that Survivor would do more of. That schoolyard pick'em they did at the beginning, where you could pick anyone. It didn't have to be guys, girls, anything. I thought that was a great thing because now you're picking somebody you're pretty much picking an alliance member. And I thought that was awesome because instead of just sitting down and having the tribes already predetermined, you're determining who you're with, and it kind of starts to create tension. And it also starts to create alliances so early on. From the first second of this game, it's like you sit there and Sugar felt like she needed to be with Ace because Ace picked her. You know what I mean? So it already created an alliance, so it was a huge backstab when Sugar voted him out. And I think that's great, and I wish that they would do that more.
Yeah, when we see that in other seasons when they do tribe swaps or just picking, people who kind of do feel an allegiance to the person that picked them. It happens all the time. I would love to see more seasons start that way. That's a very good point. Anything else?
No, let's go into the top 5.
Top 5. Here we go. Number 5. And this is where there was a little bit of separation in the points. Gabon and Tocantins were tied at 44. Gabon winning the tiebreaker there. But now Micronesia at number 5 has 49 points, so it's a little above. And Micronesia, I'm not on rewatching it. The pre-merge is pretty mediocre. Some stuff after the tribe swap is good. With Ozzy and Eric becoming buddies, and Sari is always really great. But when it was fans versus favorites, it just the fans tribe wasn't that exciting. I don't know. Pre-merge, not the biggest fan, but I will say this has the best post-merge out of all 29 seasons. That's my opinion. I think it has the best post-merge, and that's why it ranks so highly. I had it at number 5. It comes here at number 5. So, this is a great season.
And I had it at number 6, and I agree with you. Best post-merge by far, because the string of blindsides you had after Eliza got voted out with the stick. Then you had Jason Jason went, or Ozzy went next.
Yeah, Ozzy, who has the idol in his pocket, goes home.
Then
Jason Jason gives up immunity to Parvati when have their arms held up. He doesn't go home that vote because that's when they do Ozzy. But then Jason goes to exile, and Natalie convinces him it was for a reason, and they just totally mess with Jason. It's absolutely hilarious. Natalie was just ruthless.
Yeah.
They take Jason out. I forget when James gets medevaced. It's somewhere.
It was after that. James got 7th, I believe. And then what happened was Alexis got blindsided when Amanda went to tribal council crying her eyes out with the fake idol. Or with the real idol, I'm sorry.
The real idol.
He had one.
And that was that was great to see. This was the only time besides Gary in Guatemala that we see an idol play that the audience doesn't know about.
Yeah.
And the only reason it works here is because Amanda found that idol that day. And so people might say, like, we love that moment. Why can't we see more of this when we don't know someone as an idol? It's because they often get found days, weeks before they're played. In that, if you find an idol, it really changes the way you play the game. It changes your confessional, so that's hard to hide. But this was so great. We didn't know if Amanda found the idol. Just another great tribal council.
And this season, I don't think it was as bad as you think pre-merge. I like the pre-merge. I think it was funny to watch the fans struggle so much with who was the power player, and they all felt like they needed to be the leader with that guy. Mikey B thought he was the leader. Then Mikey B goes. Then Joel's like, "Oh, good, I got rid of Mikey B. Now I'm going to be the leader." And then Joel goes because that lady Tracy was actually running the whole thing with Chet, and it was so random, but she was actually in control. And a great tribal council that really showed how great of a player Eric Reichenbach was when he got them to vote out Amy. And Amy's sitting there crying because she really didn't feel like she'd done anything wrong. And he was able to convince them that it was like this was what needed to happen to keep him around.
Yeah, and we can talk about Eric, his big blunder post-merge. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about pre-merge. I don't hate it. It's just when people say, like, and even when I say, I think Micronesia is one of the best seasons of Survivor, you go and rewatch it, and it's a pretty underwhelming pre-merge. Post-merge picks up, love it. Every episode after the merge hits is a winner.
I guess my only complaint, one of my biggest complaints with the whole thing was that Kathy Chick quit and Penner got hurt. And I think if Penner doesn't get hurt, Penner had a lot of game left to play. And I know you don't like hypotheticals, but Penner had alliances working, and he had alliances working against Parvati, who was your eventual winner. And I'm not going to say that Penner would have won the game or blindsided her or gotten rid of her, but he had a lot of game left to play, and it sucks to see somebody like that go out, like with an injury. Injuries never help, and then quits never help. And I think that's what really does hurt the pre-merge a lot, because it takes away from some of the strategy and some of the actual gameplay that you want to see going on.
Yeah, I mean, this season had a lot of that. We have a Kathy quit, a Penner medevac, James medevac, but that's Survivor. That stuff happens. And if you're gonna knock Parvati's game, I wouldn't knock it because if Penner had been in there, he would have been able to take her out. Parvati wasn't going to win this thing unless it was a final two. I mean, Sari is going to win Micronesia if it's a final three, like they thought it would be. So that's what I'd knock from Parvati's game. I'm way more impressed with Parvati's game in Heroes vs. Villains, and we'll obviously get into that. But Parvati, was she better than Amanda? Yeah, I mean, Amanda just again falls on her face at final tribal council.
And I don't like Amanda, and I agree. I wasn't knocking Parvati's game by saying the Penner thing. I'm just saying it's way more entertaining to see somebody like Penner get voted off, or have Parvati blindside him, or have him be able to finish out his game, than to see him get injured because he was a player. And it sucks when something like that happens because it takes a lot away from the game. I'm not knocking Parvati for winning because Penner goes home. I'm not saying that's the only reason she won. I'm just saying it sucks when something like that happens, when it's a real player like that.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And I'm a huge James fan, especially in China. He was, just awesome in China. It sucked to see him go. Was that his finger infection there in Micronesia? Yeah. Total bummer. But I mean, pre-merge it just wasn't awful. It just wasn't like, you wouldn't think it's just the best season. It was funny. It was like Amanda and Ozzy and Parvati and James. That was fun to see. I love the tribe switch, like when, maybe this is merge, when Alexis and Ozzy kind of hit it off, and Amanda gets kind of jealous about that. Like, that was great to see. There's a reward where the girls won chicken wings, and they bring back a few wings and a few bone scraps with little bits of chicken on them, and the guys are out fishing or something, and they give the full wings to the girls. And the girls, like, wolf them down quickly because the guys are going to come back. So they get full chicken wings. And then the guys come back. Then I think it was Parvati, and I forget who else. Parvati at least was one of them, and says like, "Oh, we brought back like the wing bones for you." And then she shares them with everybody, the girls who just had full wings, and the guys were like, thank you. We're getting these wing scraps." I mean, it was so good. It was one of my favorite moments from the season. And then the girls convincing Eric to give up immunity. Just it was so sad because I really loved Eric. He was
Yeah.
probably my favorite player on this season. He really, I mean, he was playing pretty well. He was surviving. There was him and 4 girls left. When he wins that challenge, it says guaranteed Final Four. Just like, ugh. I mean, I'm sure he just hates watching that and replaying
And
that.
the thing with Eric is because of that move, people forget how good he played before that, and he really was playing a very good game. He would have won if he gone to the end, I think.
Yeah,
And
if he doesn't give up immunity, that's Final Four. He's 2 challenges away against all girls. Not to knock girls in general, but the girls left weren't like anything great at challenges, and Eric was a very savvy challenge player.
well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, he's a very physical guy, and I don't think Cerie's going to beat him in any challenge unless it's a puzzle. And Parvati, she was the most physical left out of all of
Eric
them.
Eric was good at puzzles too,
Yeah,
so it didn't even need to be physical. He was a good mental threat as well in those challenges.
and
Um,
I guess the only thing that I kind of say to knock this season a little was the fact that we didn't get to know the fans as much as I would have liked to. Eric's really the only one we got to know, and Natalie Bolton could have been a great villain, but we didn't get to hear much from her.
yeah, Natalie and Eric were like the 2 standout fans. Besides that, you're right. You really don't get to know the fans as well. The returnees hog up the airtime, and we see that again. Fans are favorites too. But I guess it was just more okay in this season because of just the series of events, and
Yeah.
it was like I said before, that post merge was a boom boom boom, just winners all around. And then Parvati and Amanda. I mean, going into it, you think Amanda has a shot at winning.
Yeah, but Amanda's terrible at the final tribal councils, and really, for me, I wish this would have been a final 3 because Suri played one of the best games that's ever been played, I think. And then because
Yeah,
she played so good, they had to get rid of her. And Amanda chooses Parvati thinking she's going to win, and then Amanda goes and sits at the final tribal and just sounds like an idiot, like she did in China the season before.
yeah. I mean, Suri does that in her first season as well. She gets deep, and then they need to, get rid of her because
Yeah.
she's just such a jury threat to win. And I would say Suri is probably the best player to not win. Would you
Her and
agree?
Sesternino.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Except he's played twice, and his second one he didn't fare so well.
He got Boston robbed.
Yeah, but yeah, Suri is a highlight of this season as well. You have anything else for Micronesia?
No, I mean, it comes in at our top 5. It deserves its spot. And this could have been a number 1 season had there not been injuries, had there not been quits, and had we gotten to know the fans a little bit better. But with all of those negatives, that's how good this season is, that it's still in our top 5.
Right, right. Great season. On to number 4. I'll let you say number 4 because this is a season you have at number 1.
Yeah, China. And I have it at number 1. And this is one on a rewatch. On the first watch, favorite season. On a rewatch, still favorite season. That's how much I love this season. This is, you say Gabon, I say this. This is the best cast the show ever had. And I think you get a great winner in Todd. You get Amanda, who's played 3 times, who I'm not too crazy about. You get the best, or my favorite female player of all time in Courtney Yates. Denise is very entertaining. PG's a great villain. James, this version of James might be my favorite. This might be my favorite player ever to play for a first time. And when he got blindsided, it was heartbreaking. But this season Frosty's a great character. Pre-merge, you had Chicken Go, who was a great character. Leslie, who was that crazy religious girl, was a great character. Crazy Dave was a great character. Ashley, the pro wrestler, was a great character. So many great characters. And then you get a satisfying winner, and you get satisfying blindsides. That's why this one, to me, is the number 1 season.
I've had China at my number 1. Maybe I've just seen it too many times. I have it at 6. I love China. It's just such a well rounded season. It's like just got a little bit of everything. It's got like funny moments, it's got strategic moments, it has camp life moments, it has a solid pre-merge, a solid post-merge. I can't knock it for like anything. But at the same time, it doesn't have like the explosiveness or the shockingness of, some of the other seasons that we have above it or that I have above it. I mean, the James Blindside, Survivor China James is my favorite player to play. Maybe that and Amazon Sesternino, probably the top two. And then Kenny Gabon, right up there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one challenge where James sat out to eat, and there was, it was burgers, fries, and soda. And I'll never forget this. This is one of my favorites. It's when they had, I think, 3 or 4 people sat out the immunity challenge, like Amanda, Todd, James,
Courtney did,
and Courtney.
Yeah.
And there were 12 burgers, and out of the 12, James ate 8 of them. 8 out of the 12. It was just, oh man.
He was nuts.
James was so great. Like this grave digger from Alabama. He says he doesn't know how to talk to people very well.
And he doesn't. You saw that in Heroes versus Villains. He didn't know how to talk to people at all. And really, Amanda did a lot of his talking for him. And the thing was, though, everybody still liked him so much because he was a nice guy. And the vote out, when they blindsided him, if he played his idol, Todd put his neck on the line. Todd would have gone home had it not been James. Todd, to me, is one of the best winners to ever play this game. And it's just insane to think that he almost went out at 7th, and then James could have just went to the end and won it because he still would have had 2 idols or he would have still had another idol in his pocket. It's crazy. That moment in that game changed everything, and to me, it's still the second dumbest move ever in Survivor history, behind Eric giving up his immunity.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just so hard. Like if you're in James' position and you have 2 idols, and what were they at? They were at 7 or 8?
Yeah, 7.
7. And you can only play it at the final 5 tribal council. So like I don't know what I mean. He thought he was tight with his alliance, I guess. I mean, it was definitely sad to see it happen.
Think about who he's left in the game with. Tell me who's going to beat him at challenges. Todd, Amanda, Courtney, Denise, PG, Eric. All he had to do was win 1 immunity challenge against them and play his idol at that time, and James is going to the final 4.
Yeah.
It's insane. But
what else in this season? There's a lot here. I love that Eric's like a virgin, and he tells Jamie that, and now they're married, which is so funny. Jamie and Eric are.
Yeah.
That was funny to see. I feel really bad for Aaron, who just got totally screwed over by the tribe swap. PG and Jamie through the challenge. Jeff was so clearly pissed.
But with Jamie and with that happening, though, that created 2 fantastic villains in Jamie and PG.
I mean, I wouldn't say fantastic. You have this thing for PG that she's like some great strategist. I mean, I've seen her play. I've seen China a bunch. She's never going to win Survivor. She never had a chance in China. She's just too annoying.
Well, here's my thing. When I say great villain, I don't mean great villain for all of Survivor history. I mean great villain on that season, and that was an important moment on that season for Aaron to get voted out, because every other episode you sat there and watched, you needed Jamie or PG to go home, and when when Jamie played the fake idol, that was sweet revenge. You know what I mean? Like, it set up that moment so much better.
It was awesome to see. Yeah, we were definitely pissed at those characters when they got rid of Aaron, and we thought it might be James going home.
Yeah.
You almost wonder if Jeff was like, "You better not vote out James. Like, James is a gold mine." Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, Denise was a great character. I love John Robert pretending to be lazy. Like this, I'm gonna be really lazy, and then when I start pitching in, they'll be like, "Wow, he's really giving his effort." I love that whole strategy.
Yeah.
He was just like a pig, though. No one really liked him all that much.
The great thing with John Robert was when Todd and Courtney heard him and James talking about how they were gonna bang Courtney or bang Amanda. Like, they were just talking about banging everyone. That's all they were talking. It was all John Robert. Yeah, it was all John Robert. He was funny. I mean, at the reunion,
that was funny. This season was funny.
At the reunion, Eric's sitting there, and they find out that Eric and Jamie are dating, and Jean Robert looks at him and goes, "So you still a virgin?" And Eric's just like, my mom is watching, but that's gold. Like, that is a classic Survivor moment. Like, all of that, there were so many great characters and so many great moments that even when there weren't incredible blindsides, it didn't matter because I just loved everything that happened in this season. And Courtney Yates, man, she should play every single season of
Yeah,
Survivor because she is
her
entertaining
and
as hell.
Frosty,
Yeah,
had that little showmance, and she voted him out. Like she showed that she could do it, and like people were worried about that. Courtney would have made a great winner, but Todd, great final tribal council speech, and did a great job with the jury.
yeah.
Do you have
But I
anything
mean,
else for China? I mean, I
well,
do love China. China's like the first season I'll show to people
yeah.
when trying to get my friends in Survivor. Like, watch China because you immediately fall in love with James. There's so many characters, so many funny moments that you learn. There's not crazy amount of idols like there are recently. Like, it's just a very nice, well balanced season.
Yeah, no, that's like the best way to put it. And it was funny to me to sit there and watch Courtney. You could tell she didn't care that much the whole time. And then at the beginning, when she's like making fun of Leslie about like the whole church thing and stuff, and like Courtney was lippy and she was like offensive sometimes and just funny TV. And then she goes all the way to the end and she almost won. She got more votes than Amanda because Amanda was that dreadful at the final tribal, and Courtney got second place on this season as like a 45, like what was she, like 90 pounds, 100 pounds, like this little tiny thing who wins more challenges than James.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think Courtney is probably my favorite female player to ever play,
Yeah.
for sure. Actually, yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah, we can move on, but anything above it doesn't deserve to be above it.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just kidding.
I disagree. Hey, no, it's your opinion. You don't have to be kidding. That's okay. You have China at number one. It's a solid pick. We have at number three. We're getting really into it now. The top three, and this was only 1 point above China. Is Cagayan.
Yeah, and this season, this season's another one. It had a great balance of great villains, great heroes, like the underdogs, and this was another one where the three tribes helped it so much. Without three tribes, it doesn't work as well. And it was funny to watch Brains, Brawn, and Beauty was the last one to lose a member.
Yeah,
Well,
this season this is one I think this is the three tribe format, and I mean we're gonna see it in season 30. I think we're gonna see it. I mean, as we assume Survivor is gonna keep going. The three tribe format works. We're getting very good response. The first time was an All Stars. I like All Stars. It's not the greatest. We've talked about All Stars. Philippines we just talked about. That was a great season. Really was helped out by the three tribes. And then here, even more so.
yeah.
This was just it was a slam dunk this season.
And I misspoke. I said that they were the last tribe to lose somebody. They weren't. They went into the merge with the most members. That's what Beauty was. Beauty went into the merge with more members than Brawn and Brains. Which, how does that, like, what part of the game is Beauty? You know what I mean? Like, that's like, to me that just blows my mind. But it was awesome to watch. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, they divide the tribes up very arbitrarily. I mean, Alexis, she's a Northwestern student. That's a very good school. She's very smart.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, we can go through each character. They can really be put on.
LJ was a horse trainer.
Yeah, it's like he could be Braun. They cast the season, then divide them up. However that you want to call it, Brains, Braun, just Beauty, or their names, their tribes. It was a great cast, and they did a lot. A lot happened. I mean, from the first episode, you think Jatia is gonna go, and then like the Marlins owner picks Garrett as the weakest, like right off the bat, just like kind of a bonehead move. You don't want to. I don't know. That was a bonehead move. I loved Morgan going and looking for the idol, and then the tribe shows up. I mean, just from the first episode, this season was bringing it. You could tell. Trish, chooses the rice. Garrett finds the idol, but then in the next episode, he doesn't let his tribe go and talk, so then he gets blindsided. Jatia pours out the rice and then doesn't get voted off. And then, the next day, she's, complaining about rice portions. And she's on the Brains tribe, and it's...
Yeah.
You have Spencer, who's just like, oh, these women, I could go on and on about Cagayan.
Now, Cagayon's it's just such a fun season. It really is. And then, I mean, over on the Bronze Tribe, on the Brawn, you get Tony just running around like a madman and showing Russell Hantz how Russell Hantz should have played every time to still get the votes because he still had good jury management.
Yeah,
And
he was friendly. He was a nice guy. He wasn't,
yeah,
burning people's socks. He wasn't a dick to everyone, but he played aggressively. He looked hard for idols. He was playing like the entire time. Like he
he's
said he'd be in spy shacks for like hours at a time. He
yeah,
like laid out a grid of his, camp, the whole island, and like did a grid search for these idols. Like he was just in it to win it.
and this was another season. It was edited so perfectly where when you were getting down to the end, you had LJ who could win. You had, I mean, Jeremiah could have won because he was such a nice guy. You didn't get to see much of him. Spencer was a great underdog who could have won. Trish could have won. Cass could have won, even though she was so mean.
Yeah,
Wu could have even.
At the final three, when Wu wins, I'm like, wow, we're gonna have a Cass Wu final two.
Yeah,
Cass might pull this thing out as bitchy and as wicked and villainous as she's been. These players might reward Cass ahead of Wu, who just kind of floated around.
which was insane to think about. But then Wu almost had a chance to win too. That was really, I mean, I thought it was going to be Tony or I thought it was going to be Spencer. But Wu could have won that game and would have won that game had he gone up against Cass, which was cool to watch because you watched the finale where anybody could have won, and that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, and then don't forget Tasha was there late. Like
Tasha was great.
she was a great player. She could have pulled it out. I love the editing in this season so much, just because you have like overpowering Tony a little bit, but it's not like he's a slam dunk to win. It wasn't like Tyson or Cochran,
Yeah.
He still does win, but you had so many competitors in there that could have won.
And great moments though, like when they did the first tribe swap and Tony and Trish joined up with LJ and Jeffra to get rid of Cliff, and the look on Wu and Lindsay's face was priceless. And then Lindsay goes and quits because she can't stand Trish. And Wu had an underdog story too. It's not as apparent as Spencer and Tasha's, but Wu had an underdog storyline. His alliance got picked off as soon as they swapped up the tribes.
Yeah, and Wu, then Wu goes, kind of latches on to Tony, and Tony kind of takes Wu under his wing, and then Tony goes wild post-merge, like blindsiding people kind of left and right, but somehow like holding it together. He's got his bag of tricks.
Yeah.
There were a bit too many idols this season, like
I agree.
Tyler Perry idol. We don't want to see that again. I'm glad it didn't really get played. But the way he used it was so creative, and he said,
Yeah.
this is a special idol, because they didn't tell anyone what the powers were. And so he says, this is a special idol that can be used at Final Four.
Yeah.
Which is like completely believable if you're out there and you haven't heard anything about this idol. There's no clues to it. It's just a special idol. Jeff said they hit it so well they thought no one was going to find it. It just shows you like how hard Tony was like playing this game.
Yeah, and
he's a great winner. And he was so entertaining with the llama talk. I mean, every episode I was just like, man, I was surprised because it's a late season and it was so good.
Yeah, and I mean, like, not saying that late seasons can't be good, because this proves it can. You just need to get the right dynamic of people. And, I mean, Sarah and Tony, you think that they're going to team up and go all the way to the end together, and then Sarah gets blindsided as soon as they merge because she won't give anybody a straight answer, and she completely deserved it.
Yeah, she was the swing vote at the merge, thought she was, had all the power. She was getting a really good edit up until that point. She was a contender. And then, she goes, Cass, seals her fate as like this flipper villain. She names herself Chaos Cass. I mean, Cass was she was one of the most villainous people we've seen in a while. Like, Tony was talking, and then she just called him out. Like, I heard what you said, Tony. You called me a bitch, but like Tony didn't say anything about her. Wasn't even talking about Cass. Like, you were just irritated at the screen with that little smug look on her face of Cass. And then it was fun to root for Spencer. Yeah, you need these like people you love, you love to hate. You have just contenders all around. I like the challenges. The challenges were really good. that cast comeback at Final Four was really fun. Um,
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah, do you have anything else to
Spencer's.
say? I mean, it was so recent.
Yeah, no, I think it is recent, but I'm a huge Spencer fan, and I hope to see him back too. I don't want to overdo it with everybody who I hope to see back, but Spencer got a raw deal at the beginning, and he showed he knew how to play this game, and he played it very well, especially post merge, and he
I
was fun
was
to root for. He really was.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when he went home because he made such a good case to Tony. He's like,
Yeah,
Tony, it's a final two. If Wu wins immunity, he's going to take Cass. If Cass wins immunity, she's going to take Wu. The only way you're getting to the finals is if you win immunity, which you haven't been good at challenges. I'm telling you now, if you keep me, and I win,
yeah,
I'll take you. That means, Tony wins, Spencer wins, Tony goes to the finals. Like that's a, you know,
that's a great final too.
and he was such a threat. He's like, if it was Tony, Wu, and
Spencer,
Spencer, Wu
that's
would
hard to
probably
pick for Wu.
Wu. Yeah, Wu takes Tony, or if it's Cass, Spencer, Tony, like Cass takes Tony. So like Spencer was telling Tony, I'm guaranteeing you a spot in the final two if you don't vote me out tonight. I thought Spencer made just an excellent case for that. But Tony proved his worthiness. He knew how to control Wu. Like he really did. He really did a great job convincing Wu. I don't think Wu was all like, yeah, about honor, integrity. I want the people who deserve there to win. Like, no, Wu really was convinced by Tony that if he betrayed him, that the jury would be mad at him and Cass would win. So
Yeah,
kudos to Tony. He's one of the best winners, I would think. Um, he did really play a great game.
yeah, I agree. Let's go to number two. Uh, Heroes versus villains.
Heroes versus villains, and you just finished rewatching this season, so if you want to kind of take the lead on this one,
I'll I'll
go
take the
for it.
lead, and I had this one at number four. You had it at two. It comes in at number two. Pre-merge, the best pre-merge of all time. The pre-merge. This is why you don't bring back some veterans and you don't bring back some veterans and some new players. You have to bring back either all veterans or all new players because this was every single one of those people was playing so hard. They all knew what they wanted to do. They all had strategies. They were all playing from day one, which you don't see that often. Best pre-merge by far. Biggest complaint for me is post-merge after the JT after the idols get played by Parvati and JT goes home. My biggest complaint is it was predictable after that. Still an entertaining predictable because you thought Sandra might switch over, but when Candace blew that one vote, you knew exactly what was going to end up happening. The only real surprise was Danielle going home, and then the fact that Sandra actually won the whole game. That was another huge surprise. But the post-merge was way less entertaining than the pre-merge, which kind of hurts the post-merge because, the pre-merge was so hot and so so entertaining. So much was happening, so many blindsides, so much strategy going on that it's almost like once the post-merge happened, everybody was like, well, let's just stick to the heroes versus villains thing. And that's my biggest complaint with it. Also, though, my third favorite reunion, because that reunion, I was like dying laughing from whether it was secondhand embarrassment for Russell, Coach just being ridiculous, and just some of the things people were saying. Overall, a great season. I just was a little more disappointed in the post-merge on a rewatch than I remember being on the first watch.
I've seen this season twice, so I do have a pretty good feel for it. I don't remember post merge being that bad. It just wasn't as good as the pre merge. But
Yeah, no, I'm
like
not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was bad.
Rupert and Colby, like they got kind of down in there, right? Like they had like kind
They
of a
almost
fighting chance for a while because you thought Sandra was gonna flip forever. You thought something was gonna happen, and so like it was almost like when something didn't happen, it wasn't that
it
bad
was
to
still
watch
blind.
because I was still on the edge of my seat. I still didn't know. I mean, that's what makes a tribal council really great. When you go in a tribal and you're just going, place your bet. Who's going home? It wasn't
Yeah.
like a slam dunk. I know who's going home every time, like it was in so many of the bad seasons. You
Yeah.
just know who's going home. Heroes vs. Villains provided us with just good tribal after good tribal. I mean, I love JT's letter, sending it to Russell this season. Again, strategically plays pretty well to get himself to the end, but just no jury management at all. When he makes that comment at the beginning about America having decision, it just shows you how little he understands
Yeah.
what Survivor is. It's about voting people off, but at the same time maintaining a way to get them to give you $1 million. And that's what makes Survivor so interesting, the whole jury system. And he just doesn't understand it. Poverty, I really liked the season. That Danielle vote off was like pretty hard hitting, like that was like Poverty was like, wow, that was fucked up. Like that was you don't do
she
that.
She even said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing with post-merge was that Candace had a chance to kind of turn it and keep it where it was like who's going to go home each week, because she had it where Sandra was saying to her, I am going to vote with you. We are going to vote out, I want to say, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank, but I want to say it was Russell. And they were like,
Sandra wanted Russell gone. Sandra wanted Russell gone forever. And that's my probably biggest problem with the whole way the final tribal council shook down. I'll let you finish, but I just want to say, like, Sandra really hit home to this point at final tribal council. My game was to get rid of Russell, and Russell's sitting right next to you. It felt so thin, and I think Parvati played a really great game on Heroes vs. Villains, better than she did in Micronesia. At least she has one victory, because she only deserves one victory, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not
in my opinion, on this season, if I'm sitting there and I'm watching that Final Three, and because I just watched it, it's fresh in my head, and I know you're going to disagree with me, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. When I'm looking at that Final Three, Russell should have won that game. And I know that he's abrasive and he doesn't understand jury management. My thing is, he said it best at the reunion. They asked, is Sandra the greatest player of all time? He said, okay, socially, no, she's lippy and she knows it. Physically, no, she might be one of the worst players of all time physically, which Sandra owns up to. Strategically, Russell looked at everybody and said, her whole goal was to get rid of me, and she could not do it. How is she good at any of these elements? And I kind of agree with him there, and I understand what you're saying about Parvati, but my whole complaint with Parvati is Parvati does not make it to the end if Russell doesn't hand her 2 immunity idols. And granted, that might just be dumb on Russell, but Russell saved her twice by handing her 2 immunity idols.
Yeah, but it's also, that's an alliance, and Parvati, chose to align with Russell. Some say like she was told to align with Russell before. But the thing with Parvati is that she was, like, from day one on, I think both Micronesia and both in Heroes vs. Villains, she has this target on her back. Like, she's talked about in confessionals by multiple people on her tribe saying, I want Parvati out first. And in both those seasons, she makes it to the end. So it's hard to say she's not like a strategic, player. Like she's a really, really great strategic player. In regards to the Russell thing, like as a viewer, yeah, it looks like Russell maybe should have won because he owns the numbers, the strategy, he gets himself to the end, back to back, whatever you want to say. But you don't live with Russell on an island 24/7 for 39 days. And that's where it comes down to. And that's such a part that we don't get to see as fans. Is like when you're giving someone $1 million, it's not just based on gameplay. And it is based on gameplay, but gameplay is also what you just do for 39 straight days. I mean, you get to know someone. And if no one's going to give Russell $1 million just because he's not a pleasant person to be around. It's like let's say you have someone you really don't like, someone you just gets on your nerves, bugs you, you're, maybe not like at each other's throats enemies. And let's say you're playing, not Survivor, let's just say, can't even think of an analogy. Survivor is so great, hard to pin something down. But, like, let's say he plays, whatever game this is, he plays the best game possible. Like, are you still going to vote for him? Like, no, because you've had to live with them. And that's such a part that's, like, has to be considered, and that's why Russell loses, and that's why he doesn't deserve the win.
And let me just say this though, Russell pre-merge played the best game by far. He wasn't pissing that many people off. They just got annoyed with him for looking for the idol, which he had to do, otherwise he doesn't last anyway. Pre-merge he played fantastic. What killed Russell's game was when he was handed the idol by JT, because it forced him into a lie, and for the rest of the game Russell just lied to everyone. And he was making up lies that he didn't need to make. And that's what ended up killing him in the end. Because he was making promises to people he didn't have to.
He loves the villain role way too much. And even in Samoa, I want to think if he had a different final tribal council that maybe he would have been able to win. But I mean, like I said, when you're living out there with someone just so miserable and like
Yeah.
not pleasant to be around, you're not going to win $1 million. It's just not going to
Well,
happen.
what I will say though about Sandra's Sandra's gameplay in Heroes vs Villains, her whole alliance got eliminated, and she was trying to scrap and do stuff. And while she was saying I want to get rid of Russell, she was also keeping the target off of herself, which was good of her because she wasn't gonna. There was really never a time where she was gonna go home. There was only one time she was gonna go home, and that was at Final Six when Rupert went home. But she had to hit an immunity idol, and she played it, which was perfect. My whole thing is with that Final Three, I don't think any of them deserve to win. That's my honest opinion. I don't think any of them deserve to win. I honestly think Jerry should have won that game.
Man? What, you think Jerry at 4 should win?
Dude, I'm just saying, when it comes down to that Final Three, picking who I think should win, I don't think any of them played the game the way they wanted to and did it successfully.
I'll go Parvati. I think Parvati played the best game on Heroes vs. Villains. You can disagree if you want. I mean, she made the right alliances, and she had a target on her back. It's like, with these returning seasons, it's hard to really, I mean, you want to say everyone's about people on the same level, but it's just not true. Some people go in with huge targets. Some people go in with no targets. Like Candace, like who's threatened by Candace? Like Parvati was a huge threat. Everyone saw her as a threat. She still gets to the end. She still gets votes. I mean, what was the vote count for that season?
It was 6-3.
And it shows you said Sandra wasn't a good social player, or Russell said that, or whatever. Just because you're lippy and just because you like getting some verbal battles doesn't mean you're not a good social player. Sandra's clearly a very, very good social player.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to, what I'm saying here, I'm pretty much being a little bit of a devil's advocate here because I don't think Sandra played that well in Heroes vs. Villains, and I don't think Parvati played that well in Heroes vs. Villains, and really post-merge, I don't think Russell played very well in Heroes vs. Villains. What I'm saying here is, when it comes to Sandra, I think that she was the most likable out of the three, and that's why Sandra ended up winning the game, was because everybody, Courtney and Sandra were like, what do they call each other, pork and beans or rice and beans? They just liked each other. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it was, and I feel like that's why Sandra won this game. Not knocking her for that, I just don't think she played the best game, but she won the game, and Tom Westman said it at the reunion. If you win your season, you do something right, and you deserve to win your season.
Yeah, it's true. If you go to the end and get votes, you deserve it. That's simple as that.
Can we talk about a couple things pre-merge here?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've been on Heroes vs. Villains for a good amount now, but it is our second favorite season. So sure. Yeah, well, I mean,
I just want to say a couple things pre-merge. I love the Heroes with James and Stephanie with their fight. I liked how there was a division in the Heroes right off the bat. The Rob and Russell thing pre-merge was so entertaining. It was great to watch. Those are two power players. If they would have played together, they would have went to the Final Three because that's how good they both are at the game. I'm not a huge Boston Rob fan, but he did play. He does know what he's doing. Tyson voting himself off still, that is just iconically stupid.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly what happened there. Like the edit, they make it seem like it was all Russell. I'm not exactly sure if it was, but if it was, kudos to Russell. That was a savvy move.
Yeah.
He goes up to Tyson saying like, yeah, it sucks, but I have to do it. I have to vote Parvati. Yeah. If Tyson's sitting there worried, if it's a tie, they're splitting votes on me. I'm going to switch my vote to Parvati. Boom. He's out of there. And that's a future winner right there.
I know. So my whole thing is, this season has great moments, and the fact that we just debated as hard as we did on who deserved to win that season and why they won, that just proves that that's why this season is number 2, because it is probably one of the most talked about seasons ever. That first episode is the greatest first episode ever, when they get off the helicopters and they go right into that challenge. That challenge was insane, and that really set the tone for the whole season, where it was just going to be ruthless and everybody was playing to win, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love this season. I could rewatch this season all the time. And some people have a problem with it because like their favorite characters go out early. Like, Boo-hoo. When you're bringing back a whole season of people, each person that gets sent home is going to be a favorite. You have 20 people of like the most notorious survivors, yeah, Randy is gonna go home first.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I love Randy too, but that's how
Yeah.
it shakes out, and you're left with better. You have other players to continue to watch throughout the show. I'm very much looking forward to a Heroes vs Villains 2 or some kind of All Stars or Legends. I mean, that should be coming up pretty soon. I
Yeah.
think they've gotten the gist not to do fans versus favorites.
Mhm.
So, hopefully within the next, 2 or 3 seasons, we'll have another one of these all returnees showdowns like we had
From
here.
from all seasons, because that's when it works the best, when it's from all seasons, where you're getting people from season 2 and then you're getting people from season 19. That's why this season worked so good, because it wasn't just from like a 5-season pool where everybody's hanging out together. I think that's why it worked out so well.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
Oh,
drum
drum
roll.
roll.
I mean, if
Wow.
you've been following, then you know the only season we haven't mentioned, so maybe not a drum roll. Um, Season 6, Survivor Amazon at number 1.
Stood the test of time.
It really has. I can watch Amazon whenever. It is so much fun to watch. It's not even that the cast is the greatest ever. It just has so many little entertaining tidbits. We have Rob C, first of all, which just right off the bat, it makes the show. He's a great narrator, a great strategic player, one of the first like really strategic minds. We have that, a good amount of strategy and blind sides, like check mark on that. We
Mhm.
have, a lot of funny, entertaining scenes. We have like the girls showering and like this is the first females versus male season, and it just played out perfectly. You have Heidi and Jenna taking their clothes off for chocolate. You have Rob like telling Matt, and then Matt telling Butch. Like they have this like trickle down, like only one person you talk to, like this like secret agent mentality, which was so funny. It was such
Yeah.
bullshit coming from Rob. You have Matt sharpening that knife for who knows how long.
And then you had the
I
chocolate and peanut butter.
Chocolate and peanut butter. You have good survival elements. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, you had people who came to play, even like characters like Dina, who went home a little
Yeah.
early, Alex, who got blindsided by Rob.
Dave was
Pre-merge was,
playing.
yeah, pre-merge was really good because you have like this guys versus girls mentality, and they were so into it. Um, I mean, I'll hear what you have to say. The winner, Jenna's probably not the best winner ever. She had to win those. What, did she win 3 immunities in a row or just the last 2?
I think it was just the last 2, because they were deciding between her and Heidi at Final 5, and they decided, let's just get rid of Heidi because she's a bigger threat, and it ended up biting them all in the ass.
Yeah, and then Jenna steals Rob's goat and
Yeah.
gets the
I
win.
mean, crazy thing too. I mean, this was the first season where you had like what Christy was deaf, so like you had
Yeah,
somebody who was like
no,
actually.
Christy was so great.
And Christy, I mean, she was what? She gets that. She gets voted out. She starts screaming about how they're the evil stepsisters and she'll never vote for them. She hates them all this stuff. And then she votes for Jenna to win at the end.
And some people
Great
think
character.
that like that was an accident. Like honestly, they
Because
think
she
that
didn't
like
understand.
she didn't understand the rules and that she was voting out the last person, thus writing
Yeah.
Jenna's name down. And they kind of went over at the reunion, but she kind of laughed it off. So we don't really know.
Yeah.
Um, you have like Roger in there, who's just
Yeah.
like a misogynist guy. I can watch this season anytime. I'll probably watch it again soon, honestly, just because I've only seen it I think 3 times, so I could watch Amazon, and that's why it's my number 1. If I could pick one season to take with me, on an island, why not an island? We're talking about Survivor. If I could pick
Yeah.
one thing Survivor season to take on an island, I would take Amazon.
Yeah, and this was my second ranked season. And what I want to say about this, we've mentioned all the fun stuff. This was the most important season in Survivor history, because I don't think if this season doesn't happen, I don't know if Survivor's still lasting right now. Because what had started to happen was it was pagonging after pagonging after pagonging. Survivor was getting predictable and who was getting voted off. Sure, you were getting tribe swaps finally. You got a fake merge, But once one tribe got control, they were going to control it the entire time. By making this men versus women and having a player like Rob Cesternino who would jump ship every single week, I feel like he single-handedly might have saved Survivor by making it so entertaining and so unpredictable. He set up all the blindsides that we're seeing now, where people will jump ship at Final 9, Final 7, Final 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what he did is he made it like a game about numbers, and like each person is a vote. And that's what you need to look at when you're playing this game. Not, we start on the same tribe, I'm good friends with you. That's not what's going to get you, the victory or to the end. Not that Rob won this season, but he showed like how to do it. Like you don't need to like someone. You just need someone to vote with you. And he kind of floated back and forth between alliances, and you didn't know which way he was going to land ever. And it was kind of every post-merge vote this is the first season where you had like a string of like blindsides, a string of like uncertainty. Yeah. Like we don't know who's going home, not a pagonging. And I agree with you. This season, it's like this is when Survivor first just like clicked and meshed into everything they've done. The whole format of the game. We had tribe swap. We had men versus women. We didn't have idols yet, but it shows you how good a season can be without idols. And of course, there are a bunch of good seasons without idols, but this season brung it stronger than Heroes versus Villains, in my opinion. Stronger than Micronesia, stronger than Cagayan, stronger than any season. I know you had China above it, but I believe it just delivered each week with just entertaining moments, strategic moments, funny moments, just game moments, just all around, just fun TV.
What was great about this season, too, was after the merge, every time somebody said that they were going to win the game, Rob Cesternino got rid of them. So he was making everybody feel so comfortable. Then he gets to the end, and Jeff does that thing at the reunion where it's like, hey, who would you have voted for if it was Rob versus Jenna? Everyone would have voted for Rob to win still because they all respected what he was doing because he was so nice and such a likable guy anyway.
Yeah, he was spinning lies, but not in like this dick way. He was really explaining like this is what gets me farther in the game.
Yeah.
And Jenna even said when she chose Matt over Rob, she told the jury originally that it's like, no, Rob's a liar. He doesn't deserve to be here. And then later on says, like this is someone's jury question, like who deserves to win this game the most besides you or whatever. And she's like, Rob for sure. And this is telling the jury, like, I took Matt because I think I can beat him. Rob would have won this thing. And Rob, I mentioned this earlier, Rob C. and Amazon, probably my favorite. Probably it's tied with James and China. Those two are just fun to watch.
And I think he's the best player to never win. And it kind of comes down to an All-Stars Boston. Nobody had seen Boston Rob play quite as viciously as he did in All-Stars. And because of how vicious Boston Rob played, everybody was still trusting him. And then, Boston Rob ran with it. But I think Rob Cesternino is the best player to never win.
Yeah, he had a huge target on his back going to All-Stars. Like, no one really... Alicia was on All-Stars. It's like Rob Cesternino, Alicia. It's like, okay, you got to get rid of Rob. Like
Jenna Lewis, dude.
There had only been 7 prior seasons. So... you didn't have it wasn't like Heroes of Villains where like everyone came to play. Rob was certainly one of those people and All-Stars that came to play. Boston Rob saw that and took him out. So those are the rankings. You have anything else on Amazon?
No, I love Amazon, and we were talking about earlier. The lie is the most iconic moment. The grandmother lie. Getting naked for chocolate and peanut butter might be tied.
I'm not going to say tied. I'm not even going to say a close second. I'm going to say a definite second.
Yeah.
I
hear you.
I'll say the grandma lies number 1. I'll say definitely number 2 is chocolate peanut butter topless. And number 3, I don't know. I don't know if there is a number 3. It would have to come from
that's how far ahead those two are.
Maybe just Richard winning the first season, just as someone winning. But So that concludes the rankings. Let us know what you think. You can disagree, obviously, all around. there's so much to nitpick with Survivor. So much of
Yeah.
it is subjective, what you like. This is by no means a definitive right list. This is just what we compiled together, and we obviously disagree on a lot of seasons. So
Yeah.
yeah, there it is. We'll be getting cast announcements in about 2 weeks. So we'll do probably one more off-season podcast. We're thinking of doing some type of players draft because we had fun with that last time, and people seem to enjoy that one. So it will be some sort of players draft, I imagine.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely let us know what you think of the rankings in comments. Anywhere that you want to say. Because this is people like to talk about this, but it's one of the best things to debate, I think, with All of Survivor. So.
Yeah, and it's fun to do. There are 29 stories that have been told,
Yeah.
and it is tough to rank them, especially when so many are so good.
Yeah.
Because you start with 16, 18, 20 people, and it just one by one they go down to one. It's just the format of the show. We love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right, over and out.